I lived my life in fear constantly. Fear of not being good enough, fear of being wrong, fear of looking stupid, fear of doing something else. If I gave in that moment, then I was guaranteed not to be here. But everything is about choice. We don't get to choose how people behave towards us, but we do get to choose how we respond. You need to be kind, be curious, dream big, take action, and believe, because you are proof that miracles happen.
Kim-Adele is a TEDx speaker, award-winning business consultant, and international best-selling author who seamlessly merged 25 years of corporate leadership with her passion for empowering individuals and organizations.
When the opportunity comes, take it. Work out later how to do it. Give me the strength to walk it with grace.
Imposter syndrome, from your term and your own experience, what is this?
It was having two conversations in every situation, but progress beats perfection. As long as I finished crying by 2 a.m, nobody'd know.
Kim, welcome to the show.
Lovely to be here, Serena. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you because your experience is incredible. I think you are literally an extraordinary example of living fearlessly, limitlessly, and agelessly.
Oh, wow. It's lovely that that's what you think. I can promise you, on the inside, it very often doesn't feel very fearless.
Yeah, that's my question. Kim, when I read your story, it's really like a novel. You started your career very young as a hairdresser, right? Then you had a high-stake career in finance sector, in banking system. That's one of the top women leaders. And you once mentioned you moved 36 places.
Yes.
Since age 21, 3 marriages.
Yeah.
Broken experience.
Yeah.
And now you're a single mom.
I am, to an amazing 8-year-old who is my North Star and reminds me constantly of just the art of the possible. Because I think we lose that when we become adults. We kind of batten down our curiosity and we try and fit in to the mold that we think we're supposed to. And yet, when we're born, we're full of curiosity and wanting to just learn and grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we should be as adults as well. But I had to go back and relearn that. And having my little person helps me see that. You know, you see how quickly and she goes from not knowing anything at all to mastering it.
I really love the word relearn. Yeah. And I know one of the most significant life events, like when Scarlett, your daughter, was only 9 months old, you were told by the doctor that they found a lump. That's right. And that was like a life-threatening situation. Maybe completely change your life.
It did.
But I think the most amazing thing is when people see you, they don't see any struggle. Honestly, when I first connected with you, I instantly feel a lot of warmth and uplifting energy. So that's really amazing. So I think before we dive into all the details, can you maybe tell our audience from your own perspective, who is Kim?
Oh, great question. I lived my life in fear constantly, probably until I was in my mid-40s. A fear of not being good enough, fear of being wrong, fear of looking stupid, fear of doing something else. And yet what I realised was, although that was my internal image, it was not my external image. Mm-hmm. I remember having my first coach and they asked me to go and ask people, friends, family, colleagues, if they could share 1 or 2 things that they thought were my strengths and 1 or 2 things that they thought I got in my own way. And they came back almost unanimously with brave and fearless. And I was like, I don't get that. I live in fear every day. So I had to ask a few more questions. And I was like, can you tell me why brave and fearless? And the response was, you will literally up sticks and move somewhere where you know nobody for a job you're not convinced you can do. And we think that's brave and fearless. And I remember saying to them, that's interesting. I've spent all my life thinking you thought I was flighty and a little bit stupid. So the same lived experience, my internal view was so very disconnected to the external view that people were seeing. And so that started me.
Since when you started to feel like you think you were stupid?
I remember winning an award, convincing myself that I didn't deserve it and they were trying to make a point to somebody else, really. And if they knew what I knew, I would never have got it. And it was around that time that I started to get some breakthrough moments that allowed me to see, because I suddenly realised there was this one particular leader, Paul Stobart. So he was the CEO of Sage at the time. I really aspired to lead like him. He was engaging, he was empathetic, but he could make decisions, and he was running, a major global organisation. And I remember sitting there this one particular day and just going, Kim, how rude are you? You have decided that your opinion, that you are not good enough and you are not worthy, is more likely and more credible than Paul's opinion that you're a great leader and that you add real value to the world. And that didn't make any sense to me, because I didn't think my opinion was better than his at all. In fact, I thought his opinion was significantly better than mine. And that was probably my first breakthrough step, because I decided I was going to borrow his belief. So I was going to borrow his belief that I could do this and do everything in my power to not let him down. And that was one of the first lessons that I learned in journeying inward, to relearn the statements that I was carrying. We kind of live by an unwritten blueprint that we've created as a child. So we have I am statements that we create that then become the unconscious ruler of how we feel about ourselves in our life, unless we go back and look at them.
But when do you think we started to learn those, take your personal journey or life experience as an example, when you started to learn those beliefs?
I found out we start to create them at the age of 7, and we enforce them at the age of 14, and we embed them at the age of 21. And unless we go back and look at them, unless we go back and go, is that really what I want to feel about myself? Is that really what I want to say? They subconsciously will drive every decision. So my personal I am statements were, I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, and I'm always alone. And so whatever happened in life, that may have made sense, because it reinforced those 3 statements that I said about myself. Whatever move I made, it made sense to those statements. So it continued to reinforce them until I started to delve into, and it was that experience that you mentioned before. So when my little girl was 9 months old, and I'd been unable to have children until I was 43. And I'd been given this amazing gift of this little earth angel that was how much love I have and had for her. And I was like, if I don't survive, how am I going to give her all of the experience and all the life lessons to go with her on her journey if I'm not allowed to be on that journey with her? And so I remember going to write the letter, but I went into a room to look at her, and I remember looking down, and it hit me in that moment. It was like the world stopped. Children don't learn by what we both say and what we do. They learn by how we are and how we show up in the world. And so I remember praying and saying, if I'm given the opportunity to continue on this journey with her, I will do whatever it takes to learn how to change the voice in my head so it doesn't become the legacy of the voice in her head. My little girl's now 8, so 7 and a bit years of really going and trying to understand, why did I say these things to myself? Why did I think them? And how could I unlearn those statements? How could I create statements that now served me, that said, actually, I am good enough and I am worthy and I'm imperfect, but so are we all. Once we understand that that's what makes us us, that's what gives our gift to the world, then we can start to view things in a different way.
Yeah. You mentioned it's 7 years old, 14 years old, and 21. It's like the whole system was already established.
And unless we go back and look at it, it's a bit like, if your phone, if it comes up with a software upgrade, what do we all do? Upgrade it. And yet the software system that's running each of us individually, unless we go and do the work, it's out of date. And I'm 52 this year. If I hadn't gone and done the work, my operating system was 31 years old. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't let your phone work on 31-year-old technology.
You really give us a lot of inspirational about your experience. For Women in the Penthouse, we have 3 keywords: fearless, limitless, and ageless. So we mentioned a lot already about the fear, also that life-changing moment. So can you still bring us back to that moment, like you were told by the doctors that you are facing this life-threatening experience?
It was just overwhelming. I didn't know what to think. I had all of these emotions that were going on at the time. And I guess my fear of not being here was greater than my fear of the illness. So my fear of not being able to see her journey, to see her grow, was so strong. And I think that for me has been one of the things that I've learned over time, has been actually it's only when where you are is more frightening than where you want to be that we find the courage to take the next step. When you look at it and go, if I had to live like this and this was it, if I gave in that moment, then I was guaranteed not to be here for her. So I think for me, what I found in there's been a number of occasions. So I've had 3 very serious illnesses over my life.
But you mentioned for a long time you established this mode for self-doubt and not enough. So naturally when skewed to the negative thoughts, right? So naturally when the doctor told you that you have this situation, there must be a lot of expanded fear, right? Yeah. But it seems like you shifted this to a positive, even like a power to move on.
It's really interesting. I've had friends who say, to me, I can't decide if you're incredibly strong or incredibly stupid. I said, but when something overwhelming happens in my world, I kind of look at it and go, what thing can I control? It's being out of control that I don't like. I can't bear the feeling of not feeling like there's something I can do. And so when I look at things like that, like the illness, so I can't control that. There's nothing I can do about that. It's going to be what it's going to be, and I can't change that. So what thing can I control? And then I cling to that like the life raft in the messy sea of my mind and control the living daylights out of it. So I will find that one thing I can do and go, right, put all of your attention on that. Focus on that one thing. And before you know it, you've moved past.
What is the one thing you'll find?
So the one thing for me at the minute is my little girl. And probably if I go back to that moment, and my marriage broke down at the same time, a single mum during that time, very overwhelmed. I also gave my job up. Within days, all of those things kind of came together. And I remember thinking, there's nothing more I can take. And I remember laying on the kitchen floor in my probably most melodramatic moment ever, and laying there thinking, I don't know how to breathe. Well, clearly I know how to breathe. I'm still here, I'm still breathing. But that's how melodramatic I was at the time, laid on the floor. And my little girl cried. She was upstairs in bed. And I remember thinking, like, she didn't ask for this. She didn't ask to be born. Right? So you don't get to lay here and feel sorry for yourself. You have to get up and go and make sure she's okay. Well, I got offered a job as interim CEO, which I started. Didn't tell them that I was still going through this challenge, and in fact had to have surgery for them to work out if it was cancer, which it wasn't.
Wow.
So I started the job on the Wednesday, and the following Tuesday I told them that I'd got training to deliver, but actually it wasn't, it was my surgery. So I had the surgery on the Tuesday, went back to work on the Thursday, and I never told them 10, 11-day period my marriage had crumbled, I'd got a new job and I'd done surgery. Because I was like, they don't need to know that. They're employing me to lead this organisation, be the CEO. They don't need to think I'm a blithering wreck of everything that's going on. But I still had a lot to process. I still had to look at all of those emotions. And so I worked out that if I started crying at 8 p.m, as long as I finished crying by 2 a.m, nobody'd know. For the next 3 months, that's what I did. That was my coping mechanism. Every night, 8 o'clock, start to cry. Every day, 2 a.m, stop crying. I did say I don't recommend it as a coping strategy. It was the one that I did. And in those, I focused on the things I could do. I could lead that team. I could lead the business. I could make it more successful. I could, on really bad days, success looked like, can I adult appropriately for 12 hours? Can I get through the day without anybody spotting inside I'm a bit broken? And I could. And then I realised I was quite good at projecting that.
You were handling it with yourself, like get that strength to move on.
Yeah, and recognising that actually the person I needed to forgive was myself, because we bring in all of the experiences in our life because we're supposed to learn something from them. And if you don't learn the lesson, life repeats it for you. We do, because we're supposed to learn that. And then once we've learned the lesson, we learn a new one. I guess for me, that's my greatest lesson so far has been everything is about choice. We don't get to choose how people behave towards us, but we do get to choose how we respond. It says everything about us. And so for me, that's the piece I cling to is how can I choose my response? And if I'm in a moment, I remember being in a moment, I was on the phone with my ex-husband and I was like, I'm going to need to call you back. I said, just need 10 minutes and I'll call you back. And he was like, why? I said, because right now I'm finding it really hard to find a response I'm going to be proud of. And so I need to come away from the call and deal with what's going on for me emotionally so I can come back and respond in a way that I will be proud of.
That's so beautiful, right? Like you choose to find the right way to respond and tell him directly, like, I need time to respond to you properly.
That's it. Because if not, I know I'm going to regret what I say.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to have to apologise for the fact that I've said something I then regret. And that's much harder to do for me than it is to take the moment and say, I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to think about my response. Then I'm going to share it because then it's coming from a position of being in control.
So that big life-changing moment, what do you choose to respond to this event?
I guess in that moment, the first thing, and I do believe in the universe and in spirit and in the Lord being bigger than us. So if this is my journey, please give me the strength to walk it. Give me the strength to follow it with grace and kindness, which is probably what I say every single day in every single moment. If this is my path, give me the strength to walk it with grace and kindness. All we're supposed to do is be kind and be creative. We're supposed to be doing something, leaving people better than we found them. And so the question I always say is, if someone were to do or say this to you, would it make you happy or sad? And if the answer is sad, don't do it and don't say it. Think of an alternative.
So you mean like when you are going to say something, then you think about if somebody say it to yourself, like, well, okay.
I shouldn't do it or say it to anybody else. To live a life of passionate curiosity and to pass our thoughts, words and deeds through the lenses of, is it kind? Is it honest? And does it add value? And if the answer isn't yes to all three, we need to think of something different to do or say or be.
That's beautiful. You once mentioned like fear and hope comes from the same mind.
What we're fearful of, we've imagined, hasn't happened yet. So we think about, wouldn't it be awful if I failed at this? Wouldn't it be awful if I said something stupid in this interview? And so we start to imagine what that would look like and we catastrophize it. It's going to be horrendous. And we add all the emotions to it. And the thing we're hopeful for also hasn't happened yet. We also have to imagine it. Wouldn't it be great if I did really well? Great if I said something intelligent that it was impactful to somebody else. And we have to imagine what that would look like. So both of them were imagined by us in the same brain. So both of them are as likely and as credible. And yet we choose to believe that what we're fearful of is more likely and more credible. We have no evidence of that because we created both. And so we can change
we
that.
learned that.
That's it. But we can relearn it. And for me, the number one thing that I believe every human being can borrow and can give is belief. And yet at our most vulnerable, when we can't do anything else for ourselves, can't dress ourselves, can't feed ourselves, can't do anything else, we can do it. We can do something that today would terrify us, or we would think we couldn't do. And so I really started to look at that and wonder, why was it? And it comes down, in my opinion, to one thing in two parts, and that's belief. The little babies and children believe they're just like you. My little girl thinks we're twins. I mean, we're like the oddest twins since Schwarzenegger and DeVito. I'm 52 this year. She's 8. So we don't really look a lot like twins. But she thinks if I can do it, she can do it. But added to that is I've yet to see a child learn to walk that doesn't have at least one adult nearby going, come on, you've got this. So we quite literally lend them our belief. But equally, anybody asks us to do anything, they do it because they believe we're going to be successful. Because if not only do we look stupid, they look stupid. But imagine what would happen if we took a moment to share, when you're asking somebody to do it, we share with them, the reason I'm asking you to do this is because I believe you're the best person for the job because of this, this, and this.
Yeah. There's so much powerful information. I think you mentioned fear is it's all we imagined. It didn't happen, right? It's interesting. I think I read this very powerful thing. Fear is basically the misuse of imagination.
Yeah.
And I guess if we use imagination correctly, it's manifestation, right? It's like if we use it in the right way, it's like we are creating our bright future. So yeah, that's something really powerful. So if there's some woman sitting in front of you, they think they're stuck in fear and doubt, which you had a lot of experience. What is one thing you will tell her?
I'd ask her to ask herself the question, if I could do magic, what would I do? And the reason I ask that question is, whatever comes up, all the things we go, well, I can't do that because you can do magic. It will eventually get the brain to find you a solution. So even if you're going, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, it doesn't understand don't. So it tries to find more opportunities for you to do what you're doing. And one of the things that I've found is most people set their goals in the negative. I don't want to be old. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be. All you're going to attract is more of what you don't want. What is it that I would like to have happen instead?
So we put attention on the wrong place, right?
And because our brain is like a sat nav, that's where it drives us. So, when I find myself in those moments where that doubt creeps in and that inner critic comes up and tells me all the things that I shouldn't be doing, I have to ask myself out loud the question, is there any evidence I might be good at this? Overcome something I'm fearful of, where I've been successful in a moment that I didn't want to. Find the thing that's most important to you. I will then say to myself, if this were Scarlett, what advice would I give her? Try your best and be kind.
So that's the true compassion, right? Like, interesting, you mentioned we are kind to our friends, our family, but the most harsh comments we can give is to ourselves. So what you just mentioned is we just really need to put the perspective, talking to ourselves, like talking to our close friend, the one we love.
That's it. And seeing yourself in their eyes, because the only person guaranteed to be with me from the day I was born to the day I die. And so I went on a real journey to actually start to at least like myself as a first step. And it's embarrassing to say that for years I didn't like anything about myself. I've got an amazing family. I've got great friends. I've got a fabulous little girl. I am loved and I am enough. But I had to journey back to find myself.
Like the moment you started to feel not worthy.
Yeah. And look at it and go, what evidence have I got that this is true?
You mentioned the first step is at least we like ourselves from dislike.
That's it.
How did you start that step? Step one.
So I remember at the time I'd gone to see a counsellor because I realised that, if I wasn't learning the lesson, so I've joked with you before that if I were to write my memoirs, it would be 3 divorces, a stalker and an evil and a critic, because I've had all of those. But I was like, at some point I've got to stop joking about it and recognise I'm the constant. I'm the one that's turned up in all of those. So I needed to really have some help to understand how I was showing up, what was I doing, saying and being that allowed me to keep reliving that experience. And I remember him sitting down, and the first thing he made me do was come up with 3 things that I appreciated about myself. And I can honestly say it was one of the most excruciating 45 minutes of my life, because I couldn't think of anything. And everything I came up with, like, great family, not about you. I've got an amazing daughter, not about you. Everything was, I was like, and it went on. I've had some great jobs, not about you. And eventually, probably about 40 minutes in, I went, I quite like my eyes. I mean, that's a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
They're beautiful.
Thank you. I like my eyes because they're the same as my daughter's. And I was like, oh, but I had them first. So that will be about me. I can actually.
So you instantly related to something external.
So I was still in that spot of the journey. Me and my little girl will sit down and we'll talk about what we're grateful for. So what are we grateful for today? And included in that has to be something we're grateful for about ourselves. because I was quite good at being grateful for everybody around me.
Yeah.
But I didn't do the same work of saying, what about me am I grateful for today? So I'm grateful that I got through the day and I did it well. I'm grateful that despite what was going on in my world, I was still able to be kind to somebody else.
Yeah, the relearn, or I would say the word unlearn process it's challenging, but it could be slow, could really not easy. But I think what I learned now, one thing is it's possible.
It is.
Right? It's at least we can change gradually, like step by step, those self-critic and self-doubt and also those fear. Like,
it's so true. It's iterative as well. And I think for me, I've learned to be kinder with myself. And one of the things that for me personally worked was when I was saying something unkind to myself, I would make myself go and stand in front of a mirror, because you're looking at a human being. It changes the words, even to yourself. You can't be as harsh to yourself when you're looking at yourself in a mirror. There is a human soul looking back at you.
It's interesting, but for some people, it's still very challenging. I remember it's very important from Louise Hay's recommendation, right? She always recommend like the mirror test, like every morning, look at the mirror and say, I love you. But she also said most of her clients at the beginning is so hard.
I really, really struggled with ever saying anything kind to myself in the mirror. Now I do.
So what is one thing, you mentioned so many tips and it's so good. What is one thing for somebody who is still even cannot start like themselves to start with?
So one thing that you can do is every day, at the end of every day, write down anything anybody said to you that was complimentary. If anybody told me anything complimentary, I'd do what I call the Primark brush off. You know, somebody say, you look lovely today. I go, thanks. Piver from Primark. I couldn't just go, thank you. In the Big Me Up book, all you do is write down what they said. Oh, you're really helpful today. I learned so much from that shared story. Write it down. Because then what you can start to do is you've got a book full of other people's belief. Do I really believe that my belief that I am not very good is greater than all of these people? Start to become curious about what can they see that I can't see? What is it that they're seeing? Back to that first ever coaching session and everybody saw brave and fearless and I saw flighty and stupid. It's like, ask the question, get an external view. So ask the question.
Yeah, you're actually putting all those information into your TEDx talk, right? Yeah. I think the title is Turning Fear into Hope. And also I think you mentioned a detail like in one rehearsal, you cannot control the shaking of your leg. That's also kind of the imposter syndrome.
And I was in a room with people that I'd spent 12 weeks learning alongside in preparation for doing our TEDx. A really, really safe space. You knew everybody was rooting for you. Everybody had got your back. And I remember having to do my practice of my speech. And I was stood there and I knew how much my legs were shaking. And I tried moving things and like moving around, see if that helped. And it didn't help. I was wearing leggings at the time. So everybody in the room could see the shaking. And I sped up. So my 12-minute speech, I delivered. I didn't miss any of it, but I delivered it in 8 minutes. So I don't think anyone could really understand.
By the way, the speech is beautiful. I watched it twice. It's very inspiring.
Thank you so much. But I got to the end of it and they were like, we've never seen anything quite like it. They said from here upwards, you couldn't tell. Like you didn't go red, your voice didn't change, you got faster, but you couldn't tell there was any fear. But down below, we couldn't understand how you were still standing. I mean, your legs were like literally wobbling all over the place. It didn't help me change the outfit that I was going to do it in. But I remember at that point thinking, okay, right, I've got to really have a word with myself about this. And then on the day, after I'd done the speech, the gentleman who was running the event, he said, I think you're really fascinating. And I said, okay, why is that? And he said, before the event, he said, you did everybody else's hair and makeup. Before anybody went on, you were like, come on, you've got this. Like what you've got to say is going to be really impactful. People really need to hear that. He said, you were the most supportive and inclusive of everybody. He said, and then I saw what you did to yourself before you went on. So you heard that then. And what I'd done is I was stood outside the backstage, and there was a glass fire exit, and I could see myself, and I was all mic'd up ready. And I looked at myself in the reflection and went, for crying out loud, Kim, it's 12 and a half minutes. You're not going to die. Get over it. And that was my pep talk to myself. That was not my pep talk to anybody else. And so even though I know it, I have those moments where it's like, actually, the doubt creeps in. For me, I sometimes have to be that, the tough love for myself, which is, you're not actually going to die.
Go to the worst scenario.
Yeah, if sharing my story helps just one person, then it's worth getting over my fear and sharing the story. It's like there might be somebody out there today that needs to hear that. And how are you living the life you're supposed to if you're not willing to put yourself out there and share it, because that might be what they need to hear.
That's amazing, and that's so real. What is one big piece of advice to those who are doubting themselves for the public speaking when we talk about this TEDx?
When I look at public speaking, I always look at it and say, if me sharing this helps somebody who was in the position I was in, then I would have been so grateful if somebody had have done that for me, if somebody had have shared their story and given me the hope to cling on to, that there is a path through. There's an opportunity for you to get to the other side. And I've shared that with a few people who've gone on to do either TEDx's or public speaking, which is that don't worry about how many, just think about that one person that was you and say, there's more of them out there. And sharing that story, sharing that lived experience can't be wrong, because it's your lived experience. So it's honest. Doesn't mean everybody else has got to agree with it, but it means you can't be wrong because it was your lived experience.
That's truly touching. The next topic is the imposter syndrome. You are the co-founder of the International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day.
Yep,
right. And it's April 13th.
It is, and this year
next month.
That's right.
What is it like? Because we all have anxiety and self-doubt, but imposter syndrome, well, from your term and your own experience, what is it?
So from my term, it was having two conversations in every situation. I'd have the one externally I was trying to project, because I was leading teams and running big businesses. And I'd have the one internally going, you can't do this. They know you're a fraud. They're going to find you out. I spent years thinking they were going to find out. They put the hairdresser on the board and turf me off. Looking like you were able to do these things, you constantly felt that you were going to be tripped up. You were going to get found out. And heaven forbid you tell anybody. What if you're right? And imposter syndrome was originally identified as a female-only phenomenon in 1978. Imposter syndrome can hit us at any point, and it comes back to these internal operating systems that we've created and we're running by. And so we wanted to create a free resource for people to join the conversation, get outside of your own head, so that you get a different perspective of how other people are viewing the same situation. Albert Einstein had it at some point. He has a quote which I butcher regularly: "The high esteem within which my works are held leave me feeling like an unlikely swindler." So even somebody globally recognised as a genius doubted that he earned that accolade, that he earned that drive. And for me, one of the things I wonder is whether or not we're ready for an upgrade. I mean, that was 1978. Do we need to look at something differently? Because imposter means fraud. Fraud, we know, is a crime, and therefore we feel even worse about ourselves because it's there. And I wonder if instead it's the symptoms of being an insecure overachiever, because we only feel it when we've achieved something we're not sure we really deserved. That feels much more overcomable than being a criminal.
But the thing is, sometimes those pictures are so real. Yeah, it is something you can achieve. But like you mentioned, also another word, overachieve, like hyperachiever. I think myself and a lot of my friends, like you think about something, you think you can do it. But like you said, one person think this is something you should go heading for. But another person said you cannot do it. Two system fighting.
Nothing actually exists in the world unless it's equal and opposite also exists. So once we understand that one can't exist without the other, it can become less scary for us. The thing I'm fearful of can only exist if the thing I'm hopeful for also exists. So which one am I going to choose to focus on? We get very wedded as human beings to being right. And I remember watching Bob Proctor a few years ago, and he was holding up a book to the audience, and he held it up and he said, if I were to tell you that there was nothing written on the cover of this book, would you think I'm right or wrong? On the audience, that were clearly wrong. And he said, once you realise that just because I'm right doesn't make you wrong, and just because you're right doesn't make me wrong, so it doesn't become as finite as hope and fear. It comes, both of those are available to you.
I want to talk about the word authenticity.
Yeah.
You know, we like we all talk about that. So what does it mean to you, and why do you find that?
It's a great question. So being honest with yourself first about what's holding you back. And that question of saying, you know, what if I knew that turning up as my whole self would be the most successful thing I do in my career? Worked in IT and finance, and therefore I tried to look like what a leader should look like. So my entire wardrobe was black with a bit of navy blue thrown in for colour. And I would desperately try and look like the well-polished, pulled-together professional that I expected everybody to be. It will be the most successful thing you do.
Give us an example, like what they achieved after they're showing up more authentically.
Well, lots of things. So I've got organisations that doubled in size, teams that actually started to really gel. Started to see significant improvements on the bottom line because you weren't seeing so much absence and sickness, because people were bought into that one vision. They weren't looking for the what's wrong, when we're not being authentic. People know that around us. We can get things wrong. We all get things wrong. If we know we were trying to get it right, we were trying to add value, then actually that's the best that we can be, because we aren't perfect. And the same's true so I've had so many leaders that have put off doing things because it wasn't perfect yet. But progress beats perfection. And once we're willing to be our authentic self, we step into progress. Share the parts of me that aren't that great, as well as share the parts of me that are. Well, I think there's a Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. It was pretending to be something that I wasn't. It was not admitting
What's the opposite to authenticity?
only showing the positive parts of me and hiding the bits that weren't so great away, and not acknowledging them to myself or to anybody else. And I think for me, there's always 3 versions of the truth: your version, my version, and the actual truth. And that's because our emotional brain responds 24 times faster than our thinking brain. So something happens and we make it mean something. Live each day as if it's your last, and one day you'll be right. We shouldn't put off until tomorrow something we can do today, because all of us will have had people that we've loved and lost, and we didn't have enough time with them, and we didn't get the warning that that was going to be their last day. So we're not going to get the warning when it's ours.
So if we take the time machine to when you were 20 years old, what would you give her? That came 3 pieces of advice.
So I would say first, you are loved, you are enough, and you are not alone, because I think she needed to hear that. I would share with her a little prayer that I have heard this year, and as I get overwhelmed, it brings me calm, and that is, all is well. Everything is working out for my highest self. Only good will come from this, and I am loved, I am safe, and I'm protected. And have that as that mantra. Say that to yourself every day.
And I think you write 5 things to Scarlett.
You need to be kind, be curious, dream big, take action, and believe, because you are proof that miracles happen. We are all proof that miracles happen to somebody. And I think the thing I've learned in the last 5 years that I didn't do at the start would be, when the opportunity comes, take it. Work out later how to do it. Work out how to do it on the job, because you'll be amazed where it takes you.
What is one bold thing you are planning for 2025?
I've just done one, which was to totally move home and school One of the ones I'm still working towards, and it's just not the right timing yet because of the age of my little girl, to move abroad. So I will do it.
Okay, where are you planning?
I'd love to live in either Spain or Greece.
Okay.
So it was my pre-Scarlet dream, was to retire abroad by the age of 55.
Pre-Scarlet, okay.
Pre-Scarlet. And that dream part hasn't changed, but the timing has changed because I wouldn't be without her for the world. And right now, she needs to be here to be able to flourish and have all of her family around her. What I'm doing this year is making sure that I'm taking the business to the next level to make sure that that is achievable when she's old enough to be able to make the decision of whether or not she wants to come with me.
So to wrap up, if you give so many inspiring tips and information for our audience, to summarize, if there's one thing you want to tell our audience, how they can start living a more fearless, limitless life from today.
Ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen and can you live with it? Believe in yourself. Believe that the thing you're hopeful for, and borrow other people's belief. So talk to people and that you know will be honest with you and have got your back so that you can borrow their belief. Promise you, if you just keep taking the next right step, you'll be amazed at just what you can achieve.
I think one thing big I learned from you is I thought we should stop seeking external validation. But what I heard from you today is collect the positive one, right? Read those nice comments from other people on you and believe that.
Absolutely.
That's a very important part of
we've got
building your confidence and remove your doubt.
They love you. They wouldn't be saying it unless they did love you. I mean, people we love can be our biggest doubters as well. That's not because they doubt that we can do it. It's because they want to keep us safe. But so what we've got to do is ask the advice from people who've achieved what it is you want to achieve. Because they'll view things from a very different place than people who haven't achieved what you want to achieve yet. Because they're still coming at it from a personal position of fear. The person that's achieved it knows it can be done. So widen that circle. Make sure your Thrive Hive has got people that you aspire to achieve what they've already achieved.
In Women in the Penthouse, we want to redefine success. So redefine kind of penthouse life. Penthouse is more like previously maybe the symbol of material, affluence. But we want to say that penthouse could be your mind, a peaceful mind and your compassion, self-love, as you talked a lot about, right? So every guest at the last, as ending, will leave a penthouse rule for our audience, one piece of rule.
That you have to pass your thoughts, words and deeds through the lenses of, is it kind, is it honest, and does it add value? And if it doesn't, you can't do it, you can't say it, and you can't be it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kim. So where our audience can find you?
Most social media as Kim-Adele 10, or you can also come over to www.authenticachievements.com and you'll see our podcast, ways to get in touch with me, or some of the work that we've been doing. And I always love hearing other people's stories and connecting with people.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you. Actually, when you're feeling it, you feel like there's only you in the world that feels like it. There's only you in the world that could be saying these awful things to yourself. I remember spending years having 2 conversations simultaneously all of the time